The world watches, holding its breath. A seismic tremor originating in the mountainous terrain of North Korea sends shockwaves across the globe. It is not an earthquake. This is the story of North Korea's nuclear ambitions, a saga marked by defiance, isolation, and the ever-present threat of conflict. Since its inception, North Korea has been an enigma, a land hidden from the prying eyes of the world. Ruled by the Kim dynasty, it has pursued its own path, often at odds with the international community. The quest for nuclear weapons has become a defining feature of North Korea's identity. The Korean War, a brutal conflict that left the peninsula divided, continues to cast a long shadow. The North Korean leadership sees nuclear weapons as the ultimate guarantee of survival. However, this pursuit of security comes at a high price, resulting in crippling sanctions and diplomatic isolation. To understand North Korea's nuclear ambitions, we must delve into the tumultuous history of the Korean Peninsula. The seeds of this ambition were sown in the aftermath of World War II, with the division of Korea into two ideologically opposed states. Kim Il-sung, the founder of North Korea, emerged from the ashes of war, determined to create a self-reliant nation. The Korean War left an indelible mark on the country's psyche. The devastation wrought by American bombing raids fueled North Korea's desire for a deterrent against future attacks. In the aftermath of the war, North Korea embarked on a program of military buildup. The Soviet Union provided substantial military assistance, laying the groundwork for the country's future nuclear aspirations. The path to a nuclear North Korea has been marked by a series of calculated steps. From its early forays into nuclear research to its first nuclear test in 2006, North Korea has consistently pursued its nuclear ambitions. 1956, North Korea joins the Joint Institute for Nuclear Research in Dubna, Russia. Soviet scientists provide training and assistance. 1985, North Korea accedes to the Treaty on the Non-Proliferation of Nuclear Weapons, NPT. However, suspicions linger about North Korea's commitment to the treaty's obligations. 2002, the United States accuses North Korea of pursuing a clandestine program to enrich uranium. 2003, North Korea withdraws from the NPT, signaling its intention to openly pursue nuclear weapons development. 2006, North Korea conducts its first nuclear test, confirming its status as a nuclear-armed state. The international community's reaction to North Korea's nuclear tests has been swift and unequivocal. The United Nations Security Council has repeatedly imposed sanctions on North Korea. The United States has taken a leading role in rallying international support for sanctions and diplomatic pressure. However, sanctions have had a limited impact on North Korea's behavior. The country's closed economy and its ability to circumvent sanctions have enabled it to withstand external pressure. Despite international condemnation, North Korea has shown no willingness to relinquish its nuclear weapons. Section 5, China's Dilemma Balancing Act between ally and threat. China, North Korea's closest ally, faces a delicate balancing act. On the one hand, China has a vested interest in maintaining stability on the Korean peninsula. A collapse of the North Korean regime could lead to chaos and a potential U.S. military presence on its border. On the other hand, China cannot condone North Korea's nuclear ambitions. A nuclear-armed North Korea risks sparking an arms race in Northeast Asia. China's approach to North Korea has been characterized by a mix of pragmatism and frustration. It has supported UN Security Council resolutions imposing sanctions on North Korea. At the same time, China has continued to provide North Korea with economic lifelines, fearing that excessive pressure could lead to regime collapse. Section 6. Life under the shadow. The human cost of nuclear ambitions. The pursuit of nuclear weapons has come at the expense of the North Korean people. The North Korean government prioritizes the needs of the armed forces over those of its people. Vast resources are diverted to the development of nuclear weapons, leaving little for essential services. International sanctions have exacerbated the plight of ordinary citizens. The North Korean government's tight control over information shields its people from the true extent of their predicament. Section 7. The specter of proliferation, nuclear black markets and rogue states. North Korea's nuclear program has raised alarm bells about the potential for proliferation. The country's willingness to engage in illicit activities has heightened concerns about the possibility of North Korea selling its nuclear know-how. The international community has long been concerned about North Korea's ties to rogue states and terrorist organizations. Reports of North Korean scientists providing assistance to countries like Iran and Syria have fueled fears about the proliferation of nuclear weapons. The financial incentives for North Korea to engage in nuclear proliferation are significant. Cash-strapped and facing crippling sanctions, the regime may see the sale of nuclear technology as a way to generate revenue. The consequences of nuclear proliferation are dire, increasing the risk of nuclear terrorism and regional conflicts. Section 8. The Art of the Deal: Diplomacy and its Discontents. Diplomacy has been a constant feature of the international community's engagement with North Korea. From multilateral talks to bilateral negotiations, various efforts have been made to persuade North Korea to abandon its nuclear ambitions. The six-party talks were a major diplomatic initiative aimed at resolving the North Korean nuclear crisis. These talks achieved some progress, including a 2005 agreement in principle for North Korea to denuclearize. However, the agreement ultimately unraveled due to mistrust and North Korea's continued pursuit of its nuclear program. Bilateral talks between the United States and North Korea have also been held intermittently, with varying degrees of success. Diplomacy with North Korea is a complex and often frustrating endeavor. Section 9. The Future of the Korean Peninsula: Scenarios and Uncertainties. Predicting the future of the Korean Peninsula is a perilous exercise. The situation is fluid, shaped by a complex interplay of domestic, regional, and international factors. One scenario is a continuation of the status quo, with North Korea maintaining its nuclear arsenal. International sanctions would likely remain in place, limiting North Korea's economic development. Another scenario is a negotiated settlement, with North Korea agreeing to dismantle its nuclear program. This outcome would require significant concessions from both sides. A more pessimistic scenario is a collapse of the North Korean regime, triggered by internal unrest or economic collapse. This outcome could lead to chaos and humanitarian disaster, with millions of refugees fleeing across the border. Section 10. A World on Edge: The Global Stakes of North Korea's Nuclear Program. North Korea's nuclear program is not just a regional problem, it is a global challenge. The proliferation of nuclear weapons and the risk of nuclear terrorism are heightened by North Korea's defiant pursuit of its nuclear ambitions. The international community has a responsibility to address this challenge. This requires a multifaceted approach, combining diplomacy, sanctions, and deterrence. Diplomacy must remain the cornerstone of any effort to resolve the North Korean nuclear issue. The international community must remain united in its commitment to dialogue. Sanctions should be targeted to minimize their impact on ordinary citizens, while maximizing pressure on the regime.